rush.
Good morning. We're here. It is Friday, April the 17th for the Ventura County Campaign Finance Ethics Commission. I will call the roll. Commissioner Johnston, Commissioner C, and Commissioner McBride. If the three of you will please stand so I can administer the oath to you, please. Please raise your right hands. Say your name when I say mine. I, Roberta Rodriguez, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Thank you. Okay, the first order of business will be the election of a chair. So we'll take nominations.
I nominate Mr. Johnson. Well, I might get a second here.
Okay, is there a second to one of those nominations?
Mine was first in order, so I think that requires the second first.
Okay. So. Okay, with that, we'll call for the close of nominations for Mr. Johnston. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Johnston, you are the new chair of the Campaign Finance Ethics Commission.
You're honored, yes.
Yep.
Yeah. I would nominate Frank. Mine was first. I already made the nomination. You.
And I seconded. Didn't retaliate, no. Okay, do we have any other nominations? Do you have a second?
I don't know, is there a second?
I've already used my second up. All right, the nominations are closed. Will the clerk call the roll? Or did it require a roll call? Just signify by saying aye. All those in favor of Mr. C being the vice chairman of the commission, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, congratulations. Okay, we've got a roll call. Swearing in. Chair and vice chair. Okay, agenda review. Yeah, them. Okay, we are on agenda review, item number 6. Do we?
At this point, there is no addendums or additions or corrections to the agenda, so the agenda actually stands as is.
Okay.
So if you'll just receive and file the fact that the agenda is going to be stated as written.
Okay. So the agenda is accepted as submitted? No objection? Okay. Commission member comments? Well, it's good to see you folks. And you too, Caroline. It's a reunion. And also Mr. Garcia. And Steve, I don't want to leave you out. Okay, we have regular agenda item number 8, review of the campaign finance reform ordinance number 4395. This has been adopted by the Board of Supervisors. Are there any comments or questions? If not, we'll move along to number 9, the adoption of the Commission's operating policies, including the implementation of subpoena procedures under ordinance Section 1297H and operating policies, Article 8, Section 13.06. Comments, questions, additions to the operating procedures?
Does Robert have any comment?
Well, I believe you may have 1 or 2 cards on this item.
Clerk, do we have some?
No, the cards are just for under public comment. Mr. Offerman does have a card.
Okay. Mr. Offerman, would you like to address the commission?
Good morning, members of the Commission. I'm Steve Offerman from the Office of Ventura County Supervisor Steve Bennett, and on behalf of Supervisor Bennett and the entire Board of Supervisors, thank you so much for your service. There was a collective sigh of relief breathed at the Board to have such an experienced and esteemed Commission on this very important matter. Moving on, I must apologize for some of the last-minute nature of suggested amendments to the policies that I have submitted to staff. I believe that staff has been able to incorporate one of my suggestions into recommended amendments that perhaps they will either present to you or have presented to you. But I believe that a similar change of language is also needed in another section of the ordinance. And without getting too long-winded, when the revised ordinance came before the Board of Supervisors, the Board recognized that in performing the role of the initial complaint review attorney, that it would be desirable for that person to also entertain evidence submitted by any of the alleged violators or respondents. There had been circumstances in the past where the role of the initial complaint review was overly circumscribed and some very simple exculpatory evidence could not be entertained by the initial complaint review attorney. There was a circumstance where an elections division employee had seen what they thought might have possibly been a violation in a filing, submitted a complaint as they are supposed to do, but the initial complaint review attorney was not able to hear the other side, and therefore it resulted in an unduly protracted issue before the Commission. So in order to streamline that, the Board directed that the ordinance enable the initial complaint review attorney to obtain evidence from the respondent. And I didn't think that that was adequately clarified in the policy, so I did suggest one particular, that it be added, and staff did find the most important place to add it, and I have found the second most important place, and that would be in section 3.07E, where it should be clarified in the sentence that the initial complaint review attorney, who shall review the complaint and any evidence submitted. I would add any evidence submitted by the complainant or respondent, and I have presented this language to staff. They're prepared to address it, and I will submit it in writing to the clerk right now.
Do we have copies for the Commissioner? Okay.
So the language was, you just add by the complainant or respondent?
Correct. This probably make more sense had staff first presented their proposed revisions to section 3.13, but nevertheless, seeing it for the first time, I can tell you that it mirrors the language that staff had crafted for insertion in that latter section being the section that specifically prescribes the function of the initial complaint review attorney.
County Counsel, have you seen this?
Yes, and I can comment on it when you're ready.
Okay. Mr. Offerman, is there anything else you'd like to add, or is...
No, that's it.
That's it. Well, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your input. County Counsel?
Yes, we were advised of this, and I've got a suggested change that is available to hand out to the public and for you that I believe the clerk has for two sections, but the first one that affects this suggestion is section 1302, where we are suggesting adding the phrase, including any evidence submitted by the complainant and the respondent, to the second sentence in that section. And there are multiple copies if anyone in the public wants one. On the back of the handout that I prepared is the code section reference for the second proposed change, which will come up later, which is to section 1306. So all that you're looking at the moment is sections 1302 and section 307, Mr. Offerman's suggestion. And these are found by reference to the ordinance section 1295D, which is on page 14 of the ordinance, which states that the initial complaint review attorney shall review complaints, evidence submitted with the complaints, and evidence submitted by the alleged violator, and issue to the commission a written opinion within 28 days of receipt of the complaint. And what's meant to add here and clarify is in the policies the role of the initial complaint review attorney in seeking input from the alleged violator to make sure there's not enough to dismiss it right away. In other words, that report that comes out within 28 days should take into account any clear evidence that the alleged violator has that there is no violation. And so it should be a full and accurate report in that regard. And although that is already in the ordinance, to make it more clear in the policies, we concur with Mr. Offerman's suggestion to add it in those two sections.
Okay, so for now, we're talking about section 1302, 1307, relating to including any evidence submitted by the complainant and the respondent, and that would be the first
That's correct, Chair.
first two amendments. What is the pleasure of the commission?
Are we just doing the 13.02 right now?
Well, we've got the suggested one from Mr. Offerman is 1307E, and County Council has one that is for 13.02, which are basically the same clarification in two different parts of the.
One isn't in lieu of the other.
No.
No, both.
Okay.
Both are recommended.
Do I have a motion to make both, to incorporate both those amendments?
So moved.
Okay.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any debate? Seems pretty straightforward. If there's no further comment, clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner McBride,
Yes.
and Commissioner Johnston.
Yes. Okay, do we have any other comments from the public, Roberta, or was it just Mr. Offerman? Okay, back to County Council. You have another amendment that you're suggesting?
The other suggested amendment, which is on the handout you should have received, is due to the ordinance requiring you to implement procedures for subpoenas. The current version of 1306 of the operating policies is taken from an earlier draft of the prior commission without modification. However, in discussions with staff, it became apparent that the 28 days requirement may not work, that there might be a simpler procedure for issuing subpoenas so that they can be done in time before hearing when new evidence comes up or other matters come up that don't allow for a separate hearing on subpoenas. And the language I've suggested is taken from the ordinance for the Civil Service Commission, which, as I'm a law advisor to that, I know has worked. And so it's just a recommended, suggested modification to 1306 to present a more workable subpoena procedure. Is open to any suggestions you have or the public may have as to other alternatives for subpoenas, but it was just staff's feeling that the prior language, which is currently in 1306, just wouldn't be workable. Also, I should point out the ordinance allows you to delegate the subpoena issuing power to both the chair and the investigating attorney. You could even do it to other individuals like the attorneys representing parties if you saw fit, which is similar to what's done in court. On the back of the handout is the reference section 1985 from the Code of Civil Procedure, and that's just provided because the Civil Service Ordinance section that I am recommending makes a reference to that section just for what procedures involve, for what notice you give, and the form of the subpoenas. And what the Civil Service Commission done is use the similar form as to what is used by the court. And we would come back to you with the exact form at another meeting.
Okay. But your office is satisfied that this makes that kind of improvement in procedure and doesn't create a problem? This is what originally suggested as an administrative streamlining or convenience?
This is just something I came up with a suggestion, knowing that your board, your commission today had to implement under the ordinance some procedure for subpoenas.
Right, okay.
And my discussions with staff found that the current 1306 was cumbersome, required a second hearing before the actual evidentiary hearing, and may not be workable in the time frame when hearings are coming up.
Okay. The commission,
I would move adoption of the amended section 1306.
Second.
second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay. If not, clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner C,
Yes.
Commissioner McBride,
Yes.
and Chairman Johnston.
Yes. Okay.
With that, what's before you is the overall adoption of the total package of the operating policies.
Is there any further discussion then on the operating policies before we? Okay, is there a motion to approve the operating policies for the commission?
I'd so move.
Second. Moved and seconded. Clerk?
Commissioner C,
Yes.
Commissioner McBride,
Yes.
and Chairman Johnston.
Yes. Okay, item number 10, the adoption of commission forms. And there are a list of, can we take those all together? And do I understand you, counsel, that you are going to come up with yet another form that will be revised?
Well, these are the basic forms that were utilized before or that are required because of the amended ordinance for your implementation for your commission. What I suggested we'd bring back to you is the actual form of the subpoena so you can at least see it. So at least as an informational item or at your pleasure as an agenda item, we would bring that back at the next meeting. But today what's needed in the business is these basic forms so that we can get complaints filed and the information transmitted to both the parties and the initial complaint review attorney and, when needed, the investigating attorney.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion to adopt the commission forms as listed? Formal complaint form, notification of filing of complaint, notification of finding by initial complaint review attorney, dismissal recommendation, notification of finding by initial complaint review attorney, recommendation to refer for investigation.
I had a question of counsel. On the form for notification of finding by initial complaint review attorney, I was just curious on the third blank there, the choices for the attorney are to check that the complaint alleges facts that, if true, would constitute a violation, or they submitted credible evidence to support the allegations in the complaint, or both, I presume. Under Section 1297, can the commission itself generate a complaint and refer it to an investigating attorney? I noted that the commission can generate, can presumably generate a complaint.
Under 1295A of the ordinance, as it's been amended by the Board of Supervisors, complaints alleging violations of this ordinance may be filed by residents of the county or the clerk. The commission certainly could make a suggestion to the clerk to file a complaint, and the complaint procedure is slightly different for the clerk. It doesn't have to be under penalty of perjury, but then it would be referred to an initial complaint review attorney for these same procedures.
Okay.
The reason for the blank in both is in case there were other things, for example, on the dismissal recommendation that the alleged violator had come up with evidence showing there was no violation. So it was just thought that there should be some blank space there available in case the reviewing attorney found some other reason to recommend dismissal or referral.
Or procedural defects like the complaint wasn't verified or no filing fee.
No filing fee, exactly.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the forms?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
Moved and second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner C,
Aye.
Commissioner McBride,
Yes.
Chairman Johnston.
Yes. Okay, and the moment we've all been waiting for, public comment. This is the time set aside for citizens' presentations regarding the Campaign Finance Ethics Commission related matters not appearing on the regular agenda. 5 minutes will be allowed per person. And we have a couple of cards here.
Oh, couple.
A couple.
I'll sit down.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You want to bat clean up? You can come first or second, would you?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Good to see you again after a year. I rushed down here because I just opened my email and got the notification at 10:18, and so I'm glad I'm last. So I went over the other ordinance with a fine-tooth comb, and it was so flawed, and I see some of the same flaws in this. And I asked this commission to make certain recommendations to the board to remove those flaws. If I heard your counsel correctly, it said the clerk could file a complaint and not have to sign it under penalty of perjury. Is that what I heard? Is that what I understood from the council?
The clerk, as defined in the ordinance, is the county clerk, meaning the elections official.
Oh.
Yes, that is correct.
Oh, okay, not the clerk of the board.
Clerk of the commission is separately defined in the ordinance as clerk of the commission and is only referenced that way in the ordinance.
Okay. Well, thank you, because that's one of the weak spots. When I started uncovering violations of the previous ordinance, because of political reasons, that clerk, the county clerk, would not file them, and my research showed that they had been filing complaints, and they were the authorized ones. So I was, as far as I know, I was the first citizen to be required to file a complaint on my own. And anyway, I want to get something off my chest. Johnny, I was promised that DVD of your retirement over a year ago and here's the culprit, Roberta Rodriguez. You know, she could be the best employee of the county, and she could be the worst employee of the county. And I waited patiently for a year. Oh, Miss Wade, I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you. Well, when the clerk of the board runs this and the county runs that kind of operation, I'm a little weary. But that's beside the point. I'm here for
You realize those are now collector's items, so.
Pardon?
I said, you realize those CDs are now collector's items.
The price has gone up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fortunately, the economy slumped, so the price is coming back down. It's a sign.
Okay, my question is, when will all the revisions, I've heard revisions this morning, I'm wanting to pick up the complete packet. I'm going to go over this with a fine-tooth comb. These are the revisions? Two?
Not the ones today.
This
What
is
is
the
it?
complete ordinance packet and everything? Well, mercy be.
There you go.
And you've already handed out the,
Well,
There you go.
see, all my work did pay off.
that's right.
Now, there is one serious concern here. As a citizen, as a private citizen, the first thing was, who will report and discover? Let me give you an example. And I'm not picking on Supervisor Steve Bennett, but he confessed to violating the ordinance and got off scot-free. Okay, the county clerk knew the violation, knew it, admitted it to me, but did not file the complaint. He had started collecting money before he filed the proper papers. He collected over $27,000 before he filed the papers under the ordinance. Okay? Under the ordinance, 3 times the penalty, that would have been an $81,000 fine. But the person charged with filing the complaint refused to file it. My conclusion is because he was a setting supervisor. If it had been a challenger or something, I see no problem with filing it. So to me, these are some of the weak links. To me, that seems like was put into the ordinance. They're the legislative body. And I want to review the new part and see, and I have confidence in this body here, but I also understand the system too. So, I thought I was going to go on to other matters, but I guess I'm back here with this commission now, and hope I get timely notice again, Roberta. That wasn't 72 hours notice. Okay, is my time up?
Just
Oh,
about.
yellow's on. Well, good to see you again, Johnny. And maybe you'll whisper to Roberta and say, Carol Dean deserves that DVD because I'm in it too, so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? All right.
Right.
See you later.
Okay, our next speaker is Mr. Paul Dursey.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, and our office, the County Executive Office, appreciates your volunteering to be on this panel. Clearly, it's an esteemed panel, esteemed commission, and we think that you're in good hands with both administratively with K-Man from our office, and of course legally with Roberto from the County Council's office. So we are very confident that with the guiding hands of our office and the County Executive Office, your commission will have all the information and opportunities to do what you do best, and we appreciate the volunteerism. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess that brings us to scheduling the next meeting. Do we have something that's coming back up that requires to schedule a next meeting, or can we do that ad hoc?
I think we can do that ad hoc, except that I don't think Fridays are going to work for us. Correct, Roberta?
Correct.
So what we can do is I can again contact you when we have something on the agenda, and then we can decide what is the best time for you guys to meet.
Okay. Very good. Is there anything else that needs to come to our attention? If not, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Good job.
Thank you, fellow commissioners, for the honor to not only to serve.